It appeared without warning, a dim speck in the sky that shouldn't have been there, not on any chart, not in any predictive model. At first, astronomers thought it was just another icy wanderer from the outer regions of the solar system, until they ran the trajectory and realized it wasn't from here at all. 3I Atlas, the third officially confirmed interstellar object ever detected, was unlike anything humanity had ever studied. It didn't behave like a comet, it didn't reflect light like an asteroid, and it certainly didn't follow the rules of classical physics. But things took a far darker turn when the James Webb Space Telescope turned its instruments toward it. What it captured wasn't just strange, it was terrifying. Because this object, far from being an ordinary visitor, may hold secrets that defy everything we thought we knew about our place in the universe. And now, the Webb Telescope confirms what many astronomers suspected all along. This is not a comet. It might be something much worse. 3I Atlas wasn't discovered by chance. It was discovered by contradiction. Telescopes began tracking the object only after it had already penetrated deep into the solar system, an anomaly in itself given its apparent size. Its trajectory was hyperbolic, a clear signature of interstellar origin. But what confused scientists was the strange uniformity of its approach. Unlike Oumuamua, which tumbled erratically and lacked any visible outgassing, 3I Atlas was surrounded by a dense, perfectly symmetric coma, a cloud that expanded outward not chaotically like in traditional comets, but in an oddly stabilized formation. Even more unsettling, the nucleus didn't seem to spin. It lacked the telltale variations in brightness that indicate rotation. This suggested that either its axis was aligned perfectly with our point of observation, statistically improbable, or something was interfering with its natural motion. Scientists began to suspect that the object might be coated in or composed of materials we hadn't seen before, materials that could dampen or obscure rotation signals, making the object appear deceptively inert. But even stranger clues were just beginning to surface. When the James Webb Space Telescope trained its highly sensitive infrared instruments on 3I Atlas, the results stunned astronomers. The spectral data showed something unprecedented, no evidence of water vapor. For an object with such a thick coma, this was unheard of. In typical comets, solar radiation causes sublimation of water ice, releasing gas and dust and forming long, chaotic tails. But 3I Atlas showed no signs of this. Instead, it released an enormous amount of carbon dioxide, over 70 kilograms per second, creating a red-shifted glow never before seen in interstellar visitors. The carbon dioxide emissions were not just strong, they were unnaturally consistent, lacking the random jets or bursts seen in natural comet activity. Even stranger, the coma surrounding the nucleus was uniform in all directions, with no sign of turbulence or asymmetry. It was as if the object were intentionally controlling its emissions to maintain a stable profile. One Webb researcher reportedly described it as like watching a spacecraft exhaust system running in low-burn mode. The implication? Either this object was artificially designed, or it was formed under physical laws we still don't understand. Hubble and other optical telescopes estimated the size of the nucleus at around 300 to 500 meters. But James Webb's thermal imaging told a different story, possibly one far more unsettling. Webb detected heat signatures consistent with an object 10 times larger, potentially over 46 kilometers wide. But that's not the most shocking part. The object's thermal emission did not match any known profile for a rocky or icy body. Instead, it suggested an energy-absorbing surface, possibly one designed to mask internal temperature. If true, this would be the first time an interstellar object exhibited signs of energy regulation, a property normally associated with active spacecraft or engineered materials. Further, the object showed no apparent rotation in the thermal spectrum, reinforcing the earlier optical observation. Taken together, these data points, heat masking, uniform emission, and rotational damping, paint a chilling picture. Either 3I Atlas is covered in an unknown insulating material, or it is operating under control mechanisms of a nature and origin completely foreign to human understanding. While the physical features of 3I Atlas were mind-bending on their own, it was a low-frequency radio burst captured by a radio telescope array in South America that truly broke the paradigm. For roughly 42 seconds, a signal emerged from the direction of 3I Atlas. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even in a common communication band, but it matched the frequency of emissions that had once puzzled scientists studying FRBS, fast radio bursts, from deep space. What made this different was the timing. It occurred just after a Webb-recorded flare in infrared energy from the core of the object. The correlation was too perfect to dismiss. Some scientists argued it could be a natural magnetic reconnection event, but others pointed out something more terrifying. The signal repeated 4 times, each with a slightly adjusted frequency, as if responding to interference, as if adapting. That's when the theory emerged that 3I Atlas may be a probe drifting through star systems, listening, and then transmitting when certain environmental conditions are met. Its sudden activation upon entering the solar system may not have been accidental. It may have been triggered by us. As soon as the characteristics of 3I Atlas began to emerge, its lack of water vapor, its carbon dioxide-dominant coma, its symmetric and unchanging behavior, some scientists couldn't help but revisit the case of Oumuamua, the first known interstellar object that zipped past Earth in 2017. Back then, the astronomical community had no infrared telescope as powerful as Webb to properly analyze it. But Oumuamua also displayed deeply unusual traits: no tail, no coma, strange acceleration, and a highly reflective surface. Now, with 3I Atlas showing eerily similar anomalies, researchers began compiling the data, cross-referencing the emissions, and even comparing the trajectories. The troubling discovery: 3I Atlas passed through a region of space almost identical to Oumuamua's entry vector, separated only by a few degrees in inclination and roughly 8 years in time. This was enough to generate a new hypothesis. What if these aren't random rogue objects? What if they're part of a deliberate sequence, like sentinels or scouts, each passing through, gathering data, and moving on without revealing their true nature? And now that Webb has confirmed these objects don't behave like comets or asteroids, the unthinkable can no longer be dismissed as science fiction. As the peculiar behavior of 3I Atlas continued to defy explanation, some researchers proposed a radical idea. What if its strange emissions weren't natural, but reactive? Several independent observatories noted that the object's infrared signature subtly changed not when it approached the sun, but when it came within radial line of sight of Earth-based radio telescopes. That is, Webb and other observatories were tracking it, sending high-frequency signals that bounced off its surface. And every time this happened, 3I Atlas's CO2 output slightly fluctuated, as if responding to attention. Even more bizarre, the object's coma, normally stable and symmetric, briefly contracted along the axis pointed toward Earth. Although short-lived, this happened 3 separate times, suggesting a possible link between our observation and its behavior. Some called it coincidence. Others began calling it reactive shielding. This led to what is now known in internal circles as the Earth interference theory, that 3I Atlas is not just passing through but is, in fact, actively monitoring how we observe it, learning from our instruments, and possibly modifying its emissions based on our attempts to study it, an act that implies intelligence or, at the very least, autonomous adaptation. Among the most unsettling discoveries came from a recent reanalysis of Webb's raw spectrographic data. While the scientific team initially focused on the carbon dioxide and missing water vapor, a narrow emission band at the infrared extreme revealed something far more mysterious, a frequency signature typically associated with dark energy research. To be clear, this isn't something comets emit. It's not even something we can reliably detect outside of specialized lab environments. And yet, there it was, consistent, repeating, and measured at least 4 times by Webb over a 48-hour period. The frequency lies within a band known to interact with vacuum fluctuations, and though the signal was weak, its persistence over time rules out simple instrument noise. If real, this would suggest that 3I Atlas is either interacting with quantum fields in a way we don't understand, or worse, generating field distortions intentionally. This possibility has opened up terrifying debates within the astrophysics community. Is 3I Atlas a vessel powered by exotic energy? Could its silent passage be a test of interstellar propulsion we were never meant to witness? The more data scientists gathered on 3I Atlas, the less it made sense as a natural object. Its smooth emissions, lack of rotational wobble, and consistency in chemical output all suggested some form of stabilization system. At first, theorists toyed with the idea of alien technology, a civilization sending probes, but a newer, subtler theory has begun to take root, that 3I Atlas is not a ship, but an autonomous artificial intelligence probe designed to monitor, sample, and disappear. Unlike the dramatized alien spacecraft of science fiction, this probe doesn't need propulsion or communication systems in the way we understand them. It simply drifts, hidden in plain sight, mimicking comets just enough to be overlooked, but built to record everything. Its mission may be observation, its purpose may be classification, and Earth may have just tripped a detection threshold. The AI probe hypothesis now holds that multiple interstellar objects may have been sent across the galaxy to evaluate biological civilizations, and 3I Atlas might be the first to activate because we reached a certain level of electromagnetic complexity, radio waves, lasers, infrared tracking systems. In essence, our own technology may have just pinged a probe that was never meant to be noticed, until now. One of the lesser publicized but deeply disturbing revelations buried in the Webb data was the temporal displacement associated with 3I Atlas's path. By analyzing high-frequency Doppler shifts and gravitational perturbations, scientists noticed that the object wasn't just accelerating slightly, it was out of sync, not in velocity, but in time signature. The reflected light curve exhibited a delay inconsistent with its known trajectory. This means either the object is surrounded by a light-bending gravitational sheath, or it's passing through a non-linear time environment, something that is impossible under Newtonian physics. But what's worse is that several lesser telescopes detected micro-objects trailing 3I Atlas, spaced at perfectly regular intervals. These were not debris or dust clouds. They were synchronized blips, like sentry drones or fragments maintaining fixed distance from the main body. The implication is devastating. 3I Atlas may not be a solitary object at all. It may be the core of a distributed system, designed to observe and record at multiple points in time and space simultaneously. And we may have only noticed the main structure. The real network might be far beyond our reach, quietly observing from a temporal dimension we don't yet comprehend. What truly unnerved the Webb research team wasn't the lack of answers, it was the pattern. After countless simulations, machine learning algorithms began picking up something no one expected, a mathematical signature embedded in the way 3I Atlas's emissions fluctuated. At first glance, the infrared bursts looked random, chaotic, but overlaying frequency maps revealed repeating Fibonacci sequences and harmonic intervals that are statistically improbable in natural processes. Even more unsettling, the periodicity of those emissions mirrored Earth's rotational harmonics, with slight deviations that only an external observer could detect. One astrophysicist described it as a message wrapped in thermal noise, a possible encoded structure hidden in chaotic emissions. If this was deliberate, it would mean the object isn't just sending out data. It's responding to ours, matching signals, adapting to our models, and embedding a reply not in language but in mathematics. The universal tongue of intelligence. Whether we're decoding it fast enough is another story entirely. As 3I Atlas defied natural classification, its presence began to overshadow other interstellar observations. Signals once thought random, detected years ago in proximity to Voyager 1 and 2, were now being revisited with fresh eyes. One report claimed that a faintly similar infrared distortion had been captured near Neptune's orbit in 2009, a phenomenon dismissed at the time as instrumental noise. But Webb's data from 3I Atlas matched that spectral fingerprint within a 94% confidence interval. This has prompted an urgent review of every deep space anomaly from the past 30 years. Suddenly, silent events like the unexplained magnetic reversals on Mars or the energy spikes around Saturn's hexagonal pole are being reconsidered not as independent oddities, but possibly as interactions with probes like 3I Atlas. It suggests that this isn't the first time we've been watched. Only now, thanks to the Webb Telescope, do we finally have the lens sharp enough to realize we were never alone in the data. Perhaps the most bone-chilling theory of all is also the simplest. What if 3I Atlas hasn't passed us by? What if what we saw was merely a decoy trajectory, a maneuver designed to draw our attention while the core object altered course? The object's sudden drop in CO2 emissions, its faint signal fading just before it exited the solar system, and its inconsistent exit trajectory as observed by terrestrial scopes, all suggest it may have ejected part of its mass or cloaked itself against further observation. In fact, the James Webb team quietly noted a data blackout, a brief period when the object's signal was entirely masked, as though a dampening field had been activated. Combine this with reports of deep space radar anomalies coming from the opposite direction, toward Earth's blind spot behind the Sun, and the speculation becomes terrifyingly plausible. 3I Atlas may have split, leaving part of itself behind, possibly in a stable heliocentric orbit. If so, then right now, at this very moment, something could be quietly circling our star, completely invisible, designed to observe, to listen, and perhaps, eventually, to act. Not long after James Webb's public data drop on 3I Atlas, a subset of files flagged as pending validation were quietly reclassified as internal only by NASA's Data Governance Unit. These files, which originally appeared as spectrographic sequences, were abruptly moved to encrypted repositories, accessible only with Tier 5 clearance. Independent scientists who had begun analyzing the raw light curves found their access revoked overnight, with vague explanations ranging from security review to instrument recalibration. The issue? Those same files contained frame-by-frame reconstructions of coherent signal pulses, timed with Earth's own outgoing radio emissions. Essentially, Webb didn't just observe a foreign object, it heard something back. And the nature of those pulses wasn't static noise. The waveform envelopes suggested intention. If this were a natural object, there would be no reason to hide the data. But if that signal resembled an answer, then suddenly, silence becomes policy, and secrecy becomes standard protocol. Shortly after the data blackout, a classified briefing was reportedly held between the U.S. Department of Defense and senior scientists at NASA and ESA. While the existence of the meeting is not officially confirmed, leaked internal memos, some redacted, others marked as speculative threat analysis, revealed a chilling development. The U.S. Space Command had issued a Level 3 watch advisory not for impact risk, but for technological parity event assessment. That classification is reserved for objects believed to possess technological capabilities equal to or surpassing human detection thresholds. The trigger? 3I Atlas's vanishing act. Its spectral signature didn't decay, it shifted out of the detection band, almost as if it knew exactly what frequency ranges Webb could see, and stepped out of view. This triggered the Defense Department to initiate what's known as a passive signal net, a network of silent listening satellites designed not to send, but only to receive, like whispering into the void and waiting to hear if someone moves. In a twist no one expected, astrobiologists working on 3I Atlas's molecular outgassing signature noticed something bizarre. Embedded in the atomic ratios of expelled gases, mainly carbon dioxide and nitrogen, there was an unexpected isomer distribution, one that mirrored biological amino acid chirality. What this means in simpler terms is that the molecular layout was not random. It showed a preference, the same preference that life on Earth exhibits, left-handed amino acids. In cosmic terms, this is incredibly rare. So rare, in fact, that the odds of encountering such a pattern in a naturally occurring object from interstellar space are near infinitesimal. The eerie conclusion? Either 3I Atlas once passed through a region of space populated by life, or it was intentionally seeded with biomolecular analogs. A warning? A message? A test? No one knows. But the fact that Webb caught it, accidentally or not, suggests we were meant to notice. Among the more controversial whispers in scientific circles is a theory that stretches back decades, to the old days of SETI and Cold War paranoia. It's called the Cosmic Treaty Theory, and it posits that some governments, or hidden coalitions of scientists, may have already known that space is inhabited, or at least monitored. This theory hinges on the idea that Earth may have been contacted before, and agreements, silent, informal, unspoken, were made. Agreements like, you stay there, we stay here. But now, with James Webb's unmatched infrared vision, something may have been violated. 3I Atlas, according to this theory, could be a response, or worse, an audit. Its precise trajectory, evasive maneuvers, and targeted infrared feedback all suggest a probe designed not to explore, but to verify. Have we broken protocol? Are we transmitting too loudly into the void? Are we tampering with physics we barely understand? If the cosmic treaty ever existed, then 3I Atlas may have just arrived to remind us of the terms we've forgotten. So now, standing at the edge of everything we thought we understood about the cosmos, we must ask ourselves a question that no scientific instrument can answer and no algorithm can predict. What if we were never supposed to detect 3I Atlas? What if the James Webb Telescope in all its brilliance pierced through a layer of cosmic secrecy that had remained unbroken for millennia? This wasn't just a passing object. It wasn't just another interstellar visitor. It was something else, something that behaved like it had a purpose, that reacted, that disappeared, and perhaps that's still here. Because what terrifies the scientific community isn't what we saw, it's what we didn't, what vanished, what went dark, and what might be silently observing right now from the blind side of our orbit, just beyond our gaze, learning, measuring, waiting. And in the middle of this growing silence, the James Webb Telescope, for all its power, has nothing more to say. The transmissions have ceased. The light signatures are gone. The final data packet, corrupted. Some say it's over, that the object is gone. But those who've truly looked into the numbers know better. This was not an ending. This was a signal, a beginning. And if that signal was received, then the response may already be on its way. We'll be here when it arrives. And when it does, we'll be watching, together. So if you want to keep uncovering the truth they won't talk about, subscribe, hit that bell, and don't look away. Because in the vast silence of space, sometimes the loudest warnings come not from sound, but from what chooses to stay silent.